Shalom and welcome to our Daily Bread. I'm Messianic Torah, and this is the third clip from my message, Priests and Commandments, for Parashat Tzav 2014-15. This week's Parashat, of course, Tzav, the second Parashat of the book of Vayak'hel. And what I'm doing is, instead of doing one long message, I'm breaking up each of the main points into its own video. So that way people can kind of mix and match, but you can go through them all and get the whole video. But it makes it easier to consume and follow along, because some people may not have an hour to sit down and watch one video. So anyway, hope you enjoy it. This one's called the priest's portion. The first one was called Moshe commands Aharon and his sons. Second was the fire shall never go out, and this is the priest's portion. So in this week's Parashat, as we just talked about the fire always burning and complacency, and before that we talked about the idea of being kings and priests and what that would entail. And in this video we're going to talk about the priest's portion. One of the interesting things that caught my eye was this concept that it talks about, even in the different, goes into the offerings, and then it talks about, the wave offering and the heave offering and what parts were the priests. And it just, in putting it in context, I think a lot of people, religious people following God, whether they're from different religions, Judaism or Christianity or Messianics, what you see is this kind of concept that, well, once I'm in, I get everything. Once I'm, whether it doesn't matter if you're a Christian, they think, well, I can just go up and hug Jesus. I can just go right into the Holy of Holies. I can have access, to whatever. And the problem with that thinking is that we learn in this week's Parashat that that's just not the case. What we see is that the priests who have been, in a way, set apart in Israel to serve God, okay, they get the responsibility. We talk about the commandments surrounding what they need to do. So actually they're given responsibility, unlike a lot of people who think, wow, I'm serving God, so therefore I get to do whatever I want. Instead it's, well, okay, you're serving God. Here's your rules and your laws. Here's your Torah, your instructions on what to do if you want to serve God. Well, most people bypass or remove that segment of their following of God, and that's what creates a problem, because it would never be acceptable. And the priests not only have the laws, but they have a portion. So here they've offered up, they've taken part in an offering and a sacrifice, and yet there's parts that they get, and there's parts that they don't get. And for people, I think that's hard to understand, that everything isn't yours just because you're serving God. You don't have full access to go and do. Even the high priest was told, who did have access to the Holy of Holies, right? The holiest place, was told, don't come at all times into the holy place lest you die. Okay? This is the high priest. I mean, you don't get holier than that person who offered for the sins of all Israel. And even he was told, you don't have access whenever you want. And it's not just going to be a slap on the wrist, lest you die. Okay? So people's ideas and thinking that they can just do whatever when it comes to God because they follow God is a very dangerous proposition. And what people should be aware of and notice from patterns of how God operates, and how he has operated in the past with his servants and his people, is that there's portions that are given to you. And there's things that aren't given to you. There's responsibilities given to you, and there's responsibilities given to everybody. And then there's specific responsibilities. And then when it comes to portion, there's a portion given to you, but not everything's given to you, even in the allotments of the land. People call modern Israel, oh, that's Israel. But there's a big difference from modern Israel and biblical Israel. Because biblical Israel, right, when God gives you the land, as is a preface for many of the commandments, right, we're getting ready to do Pesach. And Pesach, it's commanded, when you come into the land which I give you, you shall keep this service, right? Well, when you come into the land that God actually gives you, so people go, oh, well, I could move to Israel. Now I'm really doing it. No, you're not. You're still doing a memorial and a rehearsal. Why? Because where are you? Are you in the land? What tribe are you from? And what allotment were you given? And who had the authority to give you the allotments? If you look back here, you'll realize that the land was broken up according to the tribes, and then princes were chosen among the tribes, and there was an official, giving of the various lands to the actual people. So even if you were in Israel, doesn't mean that's your land. Just like modern day Israel's there, but they're not in the land allotments, and those land allotments were not given. They're not in the same borders, biblical borders, and it hasn't been set up to who gets what piece of land and for each family and household, and that creates boundaries. And once you have those boundaries, you realize that this is your piece of land that God gave you. Now it's official. These are your borders. Everything outside that's not yours, and that's not the land that you were given. This is the exact land that you're given. So I could go, and anybody could go and take up a piece of land in Israel, but that's still not the land that God gave you. Because God didn't give you that land. That's not your piece of land. Okay, if you're talking about the land that God gives you and the inheritance that God gives you. Okay, somebody from one tribe could just go over and sit down on another person's land and say, well, this is the land God gave me because I'm part of Israel and this is Israel. It doesn't work like that, and that's sloppy thinking. And so the fact is that there's a portion that's given to you. Some things are given to you and other things are not given to you, and there's boundaries. And the Torah sets those boundaries for what's ours, what's not ours. And that goes to everything. The Sabbath, right? The Shabbat is a boundary of what's been given to you to work 6 days and what hasn't been given to you. People can try and take what they want by force, but then they're disobeying Yahweh. So hopefully this message was a blessing, and we're going to tie that back into the responsibility of priests and commandments and how that all relates. The video before this was called The Fire Shall Never Go Out, and the next video in this series is called Beams and Offerings. So subscribe, like the video, leave your comments. Love to hear what you have to say about it and what your thoughts are. And I'll see you on the next video. Shalom.